Well, everyone, it's time for us to go and take a look at the Google Pixel 10 and compare it against the Google Pixel 10 Pro and see how these particular devices hold up in 2025. Now, both these phones just came out, and so I think it's really important to kind of do a bit of a comparison between the two, because you might be wondering and seeing what the main differences are between these two versions of devices. So keep that in mind, that there's going to be some key differences, but even with that, there's still going to be a lot of similarity between these types of devices as well, considering they're basically coming from the same lineup. Now, number one of the big things to keep in mind here is that when you do kind of go through and take a look at both of these types of devices, if you want to pick up the cheapest ones that I can find, even if they're brand new right now, they won't be brand new forever and they'll eventually go down in price. You can look at the description down below and you can go and find the cheapest ones from there, and you can also help support the channel at the exact same time. Now, starting off with the outside of both these particular devices, the Google Pixel 10 is a brand new phone, and on the front side, you're basically going to be able to go through and get a 6.3-inch OLED display. Now, within this type of panel, it is a good looking panel for the most part. So kind of keep that in mind. If you're going to go through and pick up a device, you're still going to be able to go through and get like a pretty decent type of experience from this type of phone. Again, it isn't necessarily like a perfect type of experience, but you're still going to be able to get a 120 Hz display, 3000 nits of brightness, and for the most part, although it's not perfect, it still is giving you like a decent type of display. And I would imagine that if you're someone out there in the market trying to get a better type of device, I do think, and when I take a look at the Google Pixel 10, I do like the display. I do think the front of it looks good, and it is very, very similar to what the Pixel 10 Pro is basically giving you. But there are some pros for the Pixel 10 Pro. Number one, the Pixel 10 Pro is going to be giving you the same size display, so it's going to be 6.3 inches, and it's going to be giving you an LTPO OLED display. So this one is going to be 3300 nits of brightness. So that is going to be a slight improvement here, because you are going to be getting a little bit of a nicer type of display. It's also going to be a higher resolution display. So it's going to be going from a 1080p display to 1280p. So that right there is going to be another advantage for that type of device as well. And it's going to be still maintaining 120 Hz and all that. So it's giving you a higher refresh rate panel, and it's going to be giving you a basically higher resolution panel as well. So that is pretty much another advantage for that type of device when it comes down to it from that direction as well. Again, it's kind of a tie on which one, is better, because of course the Pixel 10 Pro is better, but are you going to notice it on an everyday basis? I'd probably argue and say probably not, but it's just one of those other things you might end up running into. But it's not the biggest deal in the world. They're both giving you USB Type-C ports on the bottom. The backside, they are basically going to be able to go through and give you these, frosted glass back on the Pixel 10 Pro, where the Pixel 10 is essentially going to be able to give you this better type of glass back. It's basically going to be a little bit of a better type of scenario. So that one is going to be kind of interesting depending on which way you kind of take a look at it. But I would imagine that depending on how you're going to take a look at it, something like the Pixel 10 Pro is definitely going to be a way better type of device, probably for an everyday average person, rather than something like a Google Pixel 10. But I still think the Pixel 10 is still pretty decent when it comes down to it from that side as well. The price tag, the Pixel 10 is $800. The Pixel 10 Pro is basically $1,000, and that right there is also going to be a slight difference. Do you want to spend more money for a phone with like a slightly better display? It's kind of up to you, but like I mentioned, that right there is kind of another one of those things to keep in mind there from that particular side as well. So from that side, that kind of covers it up there. Now, on top of that, when it comes down to their, cameras, this is also a slight difference. They're both giving you triple camera setups. So they're both wide ultra-wide telephoto lenses. But with the Pixel 10 Pro, this one is actually going to be able to give you a slightly better type of camera. So the megapixel count inside of all those lenses are slightly higher. So they're all going to be able to give you a slightly higher type of megapixel count, which I think is a really big, nice thing to keep in mind there. But also with that addition of that megapixel count, you're also going to be able to go through and give yourself 8K capability on the backside. So that right there as well is going to be another pretty big advantage. So imagine being able to go through and pick up a device from that capability, from that capacity, that's going to be a slightly better type of experience in that type of situation as well. So I feel like for me personally, that right there is going to be another advantage. And depending on which way you're going to kind of take a look at it, the Pixel 10 is still going to be a really good camera. So I don't really want to give you the impression that the Pixel 10 is like a terrible camera or it's not good or anything like that. That type of device is still going to be really, really good. But the Pixel 10 Pro is probably going to be the one that's probably going to be giving you an overall better type of experience. And that right there is kind of one of those big things to keep in mind there for the most part as well. So from that side, that kind of covers it up there too. Now, on top of that, another really important thing to keep in mind here as well is basically software longevity. So it really just depends on, again, which way you kind of want to take a look at it. But if you're trying to get the device that is going to be giving you an overall longer longevity type of device, you have devices like a Google Pixel 10 Pro and the 10 that are going to be very similar. So both these devices are probably going to be giving you way more similar types of experiences for the most part. So as you can imagine, if you're going to go through and pick up a device, they're both going to be very similar. And like I said, I don't want to give the impression that one is going to be lasting way longer than the other one. From a battery life perspective though, the Pixel 10 is going to be giving you a 4,970 mAh battery. The Pixel 10 Pro is giving you a 4,870 mAh battery. So that right there is also going to be a slight difference. You're actually going to be able to go through and kind of get a little bit of like a better type of battery size inside of the Pixel 10. And because it's going to be giving you a slightly lower resolution, not as bright of a panel, there's also a pretty high likelihood a device like a Pixel 10 Pro is probably not going to last as long from a battery life perspective than something like a Google Pixel 10. So that right there is kind of a surprising thing when it kind of comes down to it as well. On top of that, when it kind of comes down to the performance, they're both giving you the Google Tensor G5 chipset inside, but there is a slight difference when it comes down to that RAM perspective. The Google Pixel 10 is going to be giving you the Tensor G5 chipset with 12 gigabytes of RAM, where the Pixel 10 Pro is giving you the Tensor G5 chipset with 16 gigabytes of RAM. So just from that perspective alone, that right there is a very big difference. Imagine being able to go through and pick up a device like on the Pixel 10 Pro that's going to be giving you as much RAM as most MacBooks. Like my MacBook right now has like 16 gigabytes of RAM. So that right there is just a crazy, crazy thing. And I definitely will tell you, in my personal opinion, it is a really nice thing to basically be able to go through and pick up a device in that type of situation. So in my personal opinion, if you're going to go through and pick up a device, that right there, it is a really, really nice thing to remember. Although it's not perfect, it's still going to be giving you probably an overall better type of experience from a performance perspective. But I still don't think it's as good as probably the Snapdragon 8 Elite, to be honest. So to kind of sum it up, what I definitely will tell you is that, in my personal opinion, when I take a look at these types of devices, I definitely do think these types of phones, they are very, very interesting. They're not really like a perfect type of device, but they're both very good. And I would imagine that if you're in the market and you're going to go through and pick up a device, they're both good and they both, bring a lot of different stuff to the table. But at the same time, what I will probably tell you is that I would probably still rather have a Galaxy S25 more so than like these types of devices. I feel like these phones are good and everything, but I feel like there are better options out there, and it probably would make more sense to go through and buy those types of devices rather than these ones. So, in my personal opinion, that pretty much covers it up in this particular situation. If you have any other thoughts or questions, please let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that'll mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.